Do you three want to know the code to the door? It's 2202. Haha! It's written on me since I'm the most important.
And codes? Are for nerds, lol. I used to be a forgettable little bluebird.
You may be staring at the title and thumbnail and asking, what the hell are you talking about, Dorked? If you are, I would not blame you. This silly theory of mine is pure crack, and yet the more I think about it, the more feasible it feels. I may be spiraling into feathery madness, but ever since we discussed this idea in the DeltaCast, I knew what I had to do. So let's take flight, dear viewers, as I explain why Berdly may know the final shelter code, and how this could enhance Chapter 6's story. There's an odd amount of foreshadowing if you know where to look. For instance, at the end of Chapter 2, Berdly mentions a shift with Miss Boom. The Boom family is a rather prestigious family in hometown, in no small part thanks to Gerson Boom's legacy as a historian and an author, but also due to Alvin's role as the priest at the church. The DELTARUNE religion holds great power in town, as it shapes not only the prophecy that defines our heroes' journeys and the knight's actions, but it's something that basically everyone seems to know if they don't outright believe it. It's so pivotal that it's bled into major pop culture, such as Lord of the Hammer and the Dragon Blazer series. We know that the Holiday family holds one of the shelter codes, and Asgore held another. But what about the code that represents the DELTARUNE itself? Some people have proposed that Toriel holds it, but I find that incredibly unlikely because she seems so clueless about the goings-on and is eager to move away from the tragedy all those years ago. Conversely, both Alvin and Miss Boom seem deeply alarmed when Chris brings up the shelter in Chapter 4. Miss Boom's dialogue sticks out to me. Shelter? No, now you know that's not a wholesome place. You could stand to learn a thing or two from that polite young man, Berdly. Clearly, at least one of the Booms holds Berdly in high regard, trusting him and seeing him as a role model. While he doesn't mention Berdly, Alvin has this to say. Chris, I do not know what you are experiencing recently. Chris, please look to the angel for guidance. I will pray for you as well. Chris, stay away from the shelter. Alvin knows something about the shelter. We don't know what, but given his family's influence, it would not surprise me if Carol at one point entrusted Gerson with the secret of one of the codes, and this was passed on to his children. It's worth noting that Gerson's passing seems relatively recent, as Alvin laments that Chris couldn't have him as a teacher, so perhaps he only died within the last few years, but after the death incident. There are some problems, though. Namely, if Alvin had a code, how come Chris and Susie never found it? Why wasn't Alvin kidnapped, as I had originally speculated? It's possible that the code was located behind the door that Chris refused to let us see. It's also possible that it was hidden in plain sight, but more on that in a bit. The point is, Berdly works with the Booms. It's possible that he learned the code by proxy, even if he's out of the loop for the greater meaning behind it. The catty quote from the video's intro could also hold double meaning, with Nerd referring to Noelle and Berdly both. But then, you may wonder why Berdly wasn't kidnapped, and to that I say, why would the Roaring Knight consider Berdly a threat? By all accounts, he's a normal, forgettable kid who just hangs out with Noelle. He'd be perfectly unassuming. Susie certainly wouldn't consider him a possibility, and that leads me to Fire Extinguisher and Ice. Something that sticks out to me about the Fire Extinguisher Darkener is that it looks like a bird, an annoying bird that everyone overlooked, who was in plain sight, who had a code the heroes needed to progress the plot. But there's something else, something ominous. In the Weird Route, we force Noelle to freeze Berdly with Snowgrave. In subsequent chapters, he's hospitalized, likely on the verge of death and unresponsive. For all intents and purposes, he's removed from the narrative. Even if you abort the Weird Route in Chapter 4, he doesn't recover as far as we can tell. With the hospital blocked, we can't outright confirm, but his absence remains, whereas in the normal route, he does show up, even with a burned arm. Since the Weird Route skips Chapter 6, this may be moot in the Weird Route itself, but it may carry consequences in aborted versions of the route where it's necessary to locate the codes. If Berdly is comatose, and if he does know the code, this could lead to a fascinating point of divergence with amazing payoff. Or the route could just reset to the status quo. But additionally, there'd be an extra layer of dramatic irony if the DELTARUNE code was also the exact same code held by the Fire Extinguisher, once again hidden in plain sight, too obvious to be taken into serious consideration. The issue is this would render a Berdly twist kind of redundant unless Toby delivered a double punchline, so I'm tempted to say that the Fire Extinguisher would be set up for the idea of Berdly as the source of a code without literally also holding the same one. It'd lead to such a brilliant payoff too. Berdly, of all people, holding vital knowledge. Berdly, of all people, being the key to saving the day. It's a very Toby-like approach to comedy, but beyond that, I do think there is some story potential here. So how would this potentially factor into Chapter 6's plot? Well, for starters, Susie established at the end of Chapter 5 that they need to rope Noelle into Dark World adventures in earnest. That means telling her the truth about her dream at a time where she's in great emotional duress due to her father. That alone is enough to center a chapter on, leaving little room to breathe, and yet, Asgore's missing. Undyne is missing. After a certain point, the people of Hometown can't simply ignore the obvious signs of something wrong. And Berdly is extremely close to Noelle. If something was wrong, he'd be there for her, as the festival segment shows that he's ride or die for Noelle, putting her happiness above even his crush on Susie from Chapter 2. In the absence of Susie and Chris, it's possible that she already contacted him, or he contacted her. We don't know what happened at the festival after Chris and Susie entered the Dark World, but given the state of the town and the scattered papers and lights, it's clear that things did not go as planned. It doesn't seem like Carol to let the town remain such a mess. She's very controlling and calculated, with an emphasis on perfection. And while Berdly isn't as smart as he pretends to be, I think he'd notice. This positions Berdly to play a supporting role in Chapter 6. I don't think he'll be a party member, as the 2 additional party members would be a lot to juggle, whereas Noelle already has party functionality. But this could still allow Berdly to learn the truth and perhaps share what he does know. With how close he is to Noelle, it'd be interesting to see what he knows of her troubles and woes, how much she confided in him as opposed to merely being a study buddy and gamer pal. If it becomes known that Susie is after the codes and wants to save Undyne and Asgore, Berdly may see it as an opportunity to be a valiant hero like his video game fantasies, or even make up for his mistakes in Chapter 2 if he learns the full truth. So not only would Berdly code theory be funny as hell if true, but there's some genuine emotional gravitas to it, and if Berdly does get kidnapped, that changes a lot because now it's not just to the adults, but even people more directly associated with the Lancer fan club and Noelle. Not to mention, if Berdly finds out about Chris's involvement, this could lead to a more serious confrontation with him outside of the Weird Route. And I'd love to see how it could develop. Would he get kidnapped by the Knight? Utterly curb-stomped? Would Susie, Ralsei, or Noelle try to intervene, or would Susie also stand against Chris? Maybe a bit of a reach, but the more I think about this idea, the more I think it has genuine potential, and I'd love to see the story take a turn like this. Editing dorked here. A newsletter dropped while I was editing the video, so I just wanted to address some possible wrinkles in the theory as a result of the new information. Regarding Chapter 6, Toby said, "From Chapter 6 onward, there are no more wacky, silly adventures, and you will begin to see the results of the setup that has been made so far." At a glance, a lack of silly adventures would imply that a potentially humorous twist like Berdly code theory has no place in the proceedings. However, a more serious and focused chapter doesn't necessarily mean zero levity. Rather, it means that, on the whole, the chapter will be moving the plot forward and more focused on the overall stakes than the more lighthearted adventures and humor of Chapter 5. Even the more plot-focused Chapter 4 had some hope spots with Gerson, as well as characters like Jackenstein and the aforementioned Fire Hydrant. To that end, Berdly code theory would offer a similar glimmer of hope and levity amidst the darkness of the growing conflict with the Knight, Rudy's failing health, and the Shelter. And for the reasons I already addressed, I do think it could still work and even streamline the story by making the solution for the third code more attainable, outside of aborted Weird Route anyway. So, what do you think? Is there a chance Toby might go in this ironic direction? Or do you think the code lies elsewhere? Feel free to discuss it in the comments. I have more Chapter 5 focused videos planned in the future, but I've been fairly busy of late and haven't had time to really sit down and organize my thoughts. If you want to stay up to date on future videos, please do consider supporting me on Patreon. You'll get lots of awesome perks and help me continue doing what I love, while also supporting the silly orange kitties I rescued a few months back. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.